Let's look at the backhand flick now. The backhand flick can be performed by stepping with either the left or the right foot. And in this video you'll see both versions. I'll show you both versions. At the moment in this side view you can see me stepping in with the left foot here, getting a very good wrist cock, and then just making like a little backhand counter hit motion, and now just stepping in with the right foot as an alternative. Both methods are perfectly viable. It's perfectly okay to use both or either one depending on the circumstances. What you'll find is if you step in with a left foot like this here, what tends to happen is it allows you to recover a little bit better for the next ball. Your angle of your body is usually a little bit better in terms of recovery, but it restricts to a certain extent the ease of hitting really down the line. It makes it a little bit tougher to really get a good down the line ball. It requires very good waist and shoulder flexibility. Whereas when you step in with the right foot like so, you can see how the right shoulder really comes forward and makes it a lot easier to hit down the line with the right foot. The downside is that you need to be very fast at getting that right foot out again and getting out, because your body angle's not really ideal for playing the next ball, because you're very much in a very backhand stance until that right foot gets back. So it needs faster footwork. So both have advantages and disadvantages, and some players will use exclusively one, others will use both depending on the situation. Now just seeing the step in, again a good step in, body leaning forward. Because of the way our wrist is structured, it's easier to get a little bit more wrist snap and cocking of the wrist in this stroke. Some players will cock the wrist extremely, and they won't even just point the racket down towards the table, the tip of the racket. They'll actually start to point it out towards their right hand side for a right-hander, using an extreme amount of wrist snap. The wrist is usually then snapped in the same direction that the swing, little forward swing, goes to allow consistency. So rather than snapping from left to right, the snap becomes forwards and upwards, which really does allow for quite a significant amount of topspin to be generated using the backhand flick, much more than you can do with the forehand side, all being generated by wrist and forearm. Again, you can see the playing elbow being high, wrist held high, and cocking of the wrist and snapping through contact, and staying low, leaning forward, and now coming backwards again. And just have another look at that. So in a balanced position, big step forward with the right foot, in this case, bringing the shoulder forward so that I'm in a comfortable position, good wrist cock, forwards and upwards, producing a fair amount of topspin on the ball, a little bit more than can be generated with the forehand flick through the use of the wrist, and back again. Just moving to the front view, and again seeing the two versions. Again, contact made in front of the body, roughly between the belly button and the left hip. Easy to see here, I'm using not a super extreme amount of wrist cocking. I've never used a lot of wrist in my backhand flip as compared to some people. There is actually an extreme version of the backhand flip called the banana flip, which was developed sort of in the late 90s by a couple of the European players. I think Petr Korbel was one of the early users of this tactic. It really does involve an extreme amount of wrist snap and taking the hand back much further backwards, whereas in mine, my hand is forwards of the elbow. They really do take the hand backwards of the elbow to get an extreme amount of forearm snap, extreme amount of wrist snap, producing a very fast and aggressive topspin return that can be used really from almost all over the table, short balls, even from the forehand side. and you're seeing that more and more in the advanced levels of the modern game. However, it is an advanced stroke, so a little bit beyond the reach of the new player, which is why I'm sort of sticking with the traditional and more consistent backhand flip. The banana flip can be used against very heavily backspinned balls in all sorts of situations, so more versatile, but really does require a heavy amount of practice to master and use, which is a bit beyond the scope of the new player and what we're trying to cover. So again, just seeing here this sort of flick, I'm flicking against a topspin ball, so the racket's tilted a little bit forwards and the swing is forwards and upwards. Against a backspin ball, against a very heavy backspin ball, I personally would probably push back. A player who wanted to flick would go with a very upright vertical racket and make much more of a vertical swing, much more upwards than forwards. It really just depends on your level of confidence and ability, how much backspin you can handle when you're trying to flick. I've never been a particularly great flicker, so I will tend to push balls that other players with better flicks would flick. It's a matter of your own confidence and your own style of play as well. So again, just moving back, and one thing to watch for is just the use of either leg. If you go back and have another look in this video, just from the front view, it's much easier when this right foot's coming forward to flick down the line. Cross court still remains simple, good wrist snap there, whereas, and you can see now I have to hurry to get myself back into position, whereas stepping in with the left foot, difficult to get down the line, or more difficult, but much easier to recover for the next ball.